You are in for a treat today. I'm going back to my roots. I'm going way back to when I was a little boy, exploring lakes, rivers, and streams throughout northern Illinois, connecting people with water the way nature intended. Hey, what's up everybody? Ed here. I am super excited about doing this little vlog here today, and that's because I'm going way back to my roots. So going way back to a little boy growing up here in northeastern Illinois, and I was always fascinated by water. I would spend countless hours going into the local streams and creeks and woods and looking for frogs and toads and snakes and turtles and fish and insects and all types of cool stuff like that. But water was my favorite place. And that's because that's where you could find everything. So water is super powerful. It actually led me to my degree in zoology, and that's because I just fell in love with the outdoors. I fell in love with nature, and water being the most powerful compound on our planet is where all the actual wildlife actually kind of comes together to either drink, or they go there for nesting, or for food, or for you name it, but everything goes to the water's edge. So I think it's super powerful, and I've spent countless hours, and even when I travel to this day, no matter where I'm at, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna pull off the side of the road whenever I see a little creek or river system. I'm just compelled to go explore it. So I'm talking about this as finding your own creek, but honestly, you could actually say it's find your own water system. The reason I talk about creeks is because they're small. They're readily available. They're not overwhelming. The water's typically pretty shallow. There's a lot of biodiversity, so they're easy to navigate. But water in general, I don't care if it's sitting on the edge of a beach. I don't know if it's fishing or swimming, snorkeling, scuba diving, being on a boat, putting your feet in the water on a dock, sitting back and having a drink along the shore of some sort of a water body. If it's fresh water, if it's salt water, you name it, there is a unique chemical reaction that actually happens between us, and we are drawn to it. I'm not actually going to talk about all that stuff right now. I'm going to talk a little bit about the exploration components of it, and what I actually love about water. And actually I think this is a very cool little slide that I have up right now. It's actually me exploring a water body at the Continental Divide. So it's a really cool trip. I went out there with my family, Ellen, my two boys, Austin and Cole. We were just kind of going out west and enjoying all the beauty that is out in that area. And you know, it is a haven for all types of unique wildlife, and I thought this was a really cool little pond. It wasn't that big, but it was literally on the Continental Divide. So right where I'm actually putting my hands in the water, there's all types of little isopods and stuff like that, and things like that crawling around in and around the rocks and all that, and I thought it was really cool. But the water shed from this pond in one direction, actually, if you're facing where I am at in this picture, to my right, that would go to the Pacific Ocean, and on the left it would go to the Gulf of Mexico. So it's literally that Continental Divide, which I thought was really unique. So it wasn't actually that big, it wasn't that deep, but life on the top of this mountain peak, life is going to survive. And that's what I love about actually doing all this stuff and flipping over the rocks and kind of looking for all the little stuff that actually crawls around in between those water systems is really neat. All right, as I mentioned right at the very beginning, water is the most powerful force on our planet. So I am going to get a little bit into kind of the fun stuff, but I also still want to kind of focus on the actual power of water. You know, it's something that we take for granted, and it's because it's everywhere. So it is 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen, H2O. It is a dipole, so it's also known as the universal solvent. More things will combine or dissolve in water than any other compound on our planet. It has some really unique qualities, and it provides nutrient transport inside of our bodies, and it's also nutrient transport in our river systems. So the same stuff that's actually happening in our bodies actually happens on a larger scale outside of our bodies. So I think there's a lot of similarities that could actually be drawn between these things. And here, water in our environment from
probably what you're a little bit more familiar with. I have farming, obviously agriculture. We utilize water to feed our nation, to feed the world, so that is really, really important to be able to understand from a hydrological cycle how we could actually use the power of water to actually nourish our soil. And there's actually some unique things that happen in our upper atmosphere when we have lightning storms. Because of the intense electrical activity that actually goes through the upper atmosphere, it'll actually break apart oxygen molecules, and it breaks apart water molecules and things like that. It actually can turn nitrogen that we breathe into nitrogen gas. It'll break that stuff apart, and it can turn it into nitrous oxide, which actually dissolves in water, and it turns into nitrate. So we could actually get nitrate, if you're familiar with that. That's actually what we use in our fertilizers. So you can get actually free nitrate going into your plants just by using rainwater after a high electrical storm. So I think it's kind of fascinating to actually see how our world actually functions and how it actually nourishes the earth itself. Biodiversity of the incredible rainforests that are found throughout the world, just unbelievable. Water is really, really cool because you can fill up this jar and the water will actually take the shape of the vessel that it goes inside. You really can't even hold it in your hands. You pour water into your hands, it's going to be dripping out, leaking all over the place. It doesn't really have a form of itself. But if you get enough of it going at the right velocity and in a consistent direction, it'll carve itself through solid rock. It's just unbelievable. It's water. But what happens, because it's that universal solvent, it actually starts to erode things away. It actually picks up sediments, and it picks up small molecules, and it picks up some grit in the water, and it just can erode away just because of that constant action of flowing water. And obviously the velocities are going to change over time during heavy rain events and floods and stuff like that, but it actually can carve itself through solid rock. It just blows your mind when you really start to think about the power of all this stuff. And here I am, actually, a picture of myself. We were out exploring some of the little river systems outside of North Carolina, just outside of Asheville, actually. Absolutely spectacular. I think this area is known as the waterfall capital of the world, or the United States, maybe something like that. But there's an abundance of waterfalls and rivers and creeks and streams all over the place. So this is a haven. This is just like a heaven for me, where I can go out and actually look at stuff. So my degree being in zoology, and I loved ecology, which is the study of all types of ecosystems. But what I love about the science is it forces you to stop and to look and to listen and to observe. And there's so much we could actually learn just by actually slowing down. And here I am taking pictures and videos so I could remember some of these things. But when you really start to break them apart, you could see these massive boulders, and you can see this water kind of cascading itself over all that. But I actually take my camera and I'll dip it underwater, so I could actually see how the water actually interacts with the boulders themselves. What's really unique about this from a geological perspective, you look at water velocities, and I just talked about how water carves itself through solid rock. But what happens is, you could see in this waterfall, you get this water building up behind this rocky ridge, and all of a sudden you have water velocity changes. So you might have really deep water, and then you have this really hard rocky ridge, and the water becomes more and more shallow. And what happens is it picks up velocity because you have this massive flow of water, and now it's all of a sudden getting compressed into a small area. And I'm going to talk more about this next time when I actually talk about waterfall and stream design and construction techniques. But right now I'm talking about just the power of observation, looking and understanding how all this stuff works. So all of a sudden this water kind of wells up, and the water increases its water velocity, and it blasts itself through these rocks, and it pushes things and it moves things around. And when you look underwater, what I think is unique about this, you're not going to find like piles of sand and fine sediments at the base of a big waterfall. That's because the water velocity is coming down and it's still splashing around. So it has to dissipate that energy. And that energy gets dissipated by scouring away everything. It actually pushes all those sediments further downstream. So usually right at the base of a big waterfall, and I'm going to say usually because nature is very unique and there's always going to be rules that are going to be broken. But what happens, because of that high energy, it needs to be dissipated. So it scours all that stuff away. So if you take your phone, or if you put a mask and snorkel on it and look underneath the water, you're going to actually see kind of a boulder strewn field right at the base of those waterfalls and riffle areas and rapids and stuff like that, because the energy has to be broken up. And what happens is it's pushes all those sediments and stuff a little bit further downstream until it comes into like a little bit of a plunge pool.
Oh, check this out. This is unreal. We got some really cool striations, these kind of horizontal patterns of rock cutting across the river, and it's literally diverting the flow kind of in a zigzag type fashion. So check out this flow. We got this big ridge of rock cutting across. These are actually individual like slabs or plates. The water's flowing in between them, splitting. It's flowing perpendicular to the flow of the river, breaking itself down, coming down, hitting this rock, sweeping around, hitting here, cutting hard again, and then it's making its way downstream. It's really, really unique stuff. Man, this is an incredible place. You also have a little bit of vegetation kind of popping up in between nooks and crannies where it can hold on.
We could just learn so much, and it's amazing to see these small insects and animals that are clinging to this high velocity water. But what happens when that energy gets dissipated, it actually creates little, like a hydrodynamic boundary, like a little barrier where there's very little water flow. So these animals could actually stick themselves directly to the rock and underneath stuff. And it's actually the home for a wide variety of different things. And that's because they have a fresh food source. So all that debris that's going to come down from leaf matter, it's going to get broken apart by the rapids and stuff, and it's going to shred it into pieces. And that's the perfect food source for a wide variety of different types of zooplankton and small invertebrates and shredders and all that type of stuff, and snails that are going to consume all that detritus inside of there, which actually feeds the food web. So again, just by stopping and looking at one little section, you could see all these different things happen. And then the other picture I have, obviously river systems are going to change elevations. You might have very, very steep areas up in the headwaters, and then they're going to come down into the flatter plains areas, and you're going to get oxbow lakes and little meanders and stuff like that, undercut banks and more sandy beds, where you're going to have a completely different set of animals that are going to be associated in those zones than those high fast moving water areas. And again, the reason I'm talking about this stuff is because I'm an eternal student. I love looking and learning and understanding these things, and I'm using all these different strategies and all this stuff that I've looked at for decades. I'm using all this stuff to actually create the water features that I build on a daily basis. And my most recent one over in Southern Africa, I've used all of these different strategies together to actually create something that looks like nature actually created itself. So I just want to pick apart all these different pieces and parts to understand how they function. It's just fascinating.
Oh, this is absolutely beautiful. Yeah, look at that big old tree coming across, hitting right into the water, and it just vaporizes that stuff. All right, check this out. Look at this tree growing right in the creek bed. But as a designer and builder, this is the type of stuff I'm always looking for and looking at. I mean, just look at this root structure, how it's kind of going through here and wrapping around all these rocks and things like that. But I could just picture when this is flowing water, that water's just kind of cascading right off of all that. It's like a work of art.
A beautiful trout stream. I love showing this picture actually. And it's because there's algae growing on stuff. But if you were to look underwater at these things, you're going to see just this beautiful crystal clear water. I mean, it looks like you're swimming in air. But over and around those rocks, you're going to see this beautiful algal growth. That's because it's normal, it's natural, it's healthy, it's going to have that food source. It starts it's the basis for food on our planet because of that, the action of photosynthesis actually in this riverine system. That algal growth is going to feed a lot of those smaller fish and a lot of the insects and things that move itself up through the food chain. So our goal is to create water the way nature intended it. So we need the building blocks for life. We need dissolved nutrients, we need water, we need sunlight, we need carbon dioxide, all these different things working together to actually use that process of photosynthesis to create carbohydrates. The carbohydrates are then going to be eaten by a wide variety of different insects and animals and fish and all crustaceans and you name it. And they're going to take that carbohydrate and they're going to turn it into a protein. And then that protein is going to move itself up through the food chain. So this literally is the building block for life on our planet. And here are some of those things that I'm actually talking about. So all those little things, those little shredders that are in the water, so the crayfish and stuff like that, that are going to break apart all the organic compounds, the leaves and stuff like that, as well as even eat animal protein. They are omnivores, but they're going to break that stuff up into smaller and smaller and smaller particles. That stuff is still food for something. Now, eventually bacteria will break it down, which is part of our biological filtration. But these little guys right here, these are caddis flies. Super cool little creatures. You can see they actually are attached to a rock. They have these arms that are sticking upstream. So what happens is that flowing water goes right past them, and they're picking off organic particles out of the water, and they're using that for sustenance. They actually make these cool little cases. They create like a mucousy production, and they could actually take bits of sand and gravel as well as bits of algae and aquatic plants, and they make these little cases to protect their bodies. They make these little funnels for actually feeding. What I love about them is they're an important part of that food cycle, but they're filter feeders. They're going to feed off of all of that organic compound that's just floating down these river systems. And when I talk about designing and building the way nature intended it, I want these things in. I don't want to have sterile water. I'm not building a swimming pool. It's not our goal. Our goal is to create life. And I want to see all of that stuff actually occurring. So having organic compounds inside the water are very important. Actually, these little caddis flies and things like that are actually incredible food sources for a wide variety of fish. Now, obviously, if the fish could get to them, they're going to feed on them instantaneously. But where I see a lot of these guys actually living is up in our upper areas of our waterfalls and streams, where the fish in our ecosystem ponds don't have access to. So it's going to be very, very shallow, fast-moving water. So these guys are perfect, and then they breed, and then the larvae and everything we're going to go downstream, and that becomes food for everything else in the system. There are tons of complex interactions on a variety of levels, and looking at this stuff underwater and just using small microscopes and things like that, you could see all the copepods, the rotifers, the small crustaceans, and all these different things, and they're living down in those layers, so they need surfaces. So things that are free floating, that are actually in the water column, are prone to being eaten. So I love designing and building like rocks and gravel and slides and alluvial areas and things like that, because that becomes the home for all these little creatures to actually crawl around and live, which are very important for the cycling of nutrients inside of these ecosystems. Using some of these animals as indicator species. This is not a man-made pond. This is a picture. We were out in Georgia looking for some of these amazing alligator snapping turtles. We had the opportunity to actually working with Greg's Turtle Haven, Greg Bashir's, searching around some of the river systems throughout Georgia, looking for these amazing, amazing animals. What I love about this stuff, again, is we are learning every single step of the way. The water quality that they need, just appreciating these incredible animals, and they are indicator species for healthy aquatic ecosystems. They need really, really clean, clear water for them to actually thrive. A few other amazing trips that I've had the opportunity. And again, I'm talking about some of these exotic ones, and they don't need to be exotic. These things could be small, little creeks that you're going to find in any part of the world, where you take your shoes off and you just kind of walk through these aquatic ecosystems. All right, so this amazing trip going out with Heiko Blair and a team of just passionate enthusiasts for water and fish, looking for new species of fish, West Papua New Guinea and Indonesia, and we were living on a uninhabited island, taking these little dugout canoes up through these mangrove areas, looking for species of freshwater fish and finding these amazing waterfalls and looking at all these things. And as I said, I just love to kind of deconstruct them in my head. You know, looking at this waterfall, there's the pond guy actually swimming inside of this little hidden cave. This is a lot of limestone in this area, which is dissolves away pretty easily, and that actually creates these cave systems. But some of these beautiful rainbow fish, and actually, I believe according to Heiko, we did find a new species of rainbow fish, which if you're not familiar with them, they are very, very popular in the aquarium world and aquarium industry, but just absolutely spectacular. And we actually have a few of these rainbow fish right here in our office. Not these exact ones, but we have rainbow fish that that Trevor and I created a cool tank for a few years ago. So just so much fun, and just looking and exploring all these things. And when I got my degree in zoology, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a field person. I didn't want to be caught in a lab. Actually, my first job was in a lab. And it was super, super interesting, but it was not fulfilling to me. So I knew I wanted to be outdoors because I'm an outdoor person. I said it in the beginning, you know, I love, you know, hiking and exploring and snorkeling and scuba diving and fishing and, you know, all of those different disciplines. I just love doing that stuff. So when I got my degree, that's what I was hoping to be, a field person out there actually looking for new species. And this was an amazing opportunity that the pond guy gifted me with to actually go and explore. Tanner Serpa, just love working with Tanner because we have a similar kind of mindset. He does stuff obviously more, I don't want to say a smaller scale, but kind of is, because it's mostly inside aquariums and paludariums and fish tanks and things like that. We did 2 water features for Tanner for his previous home, and then a beautiful one for goldfish and frogs and all types of wildlife at his newer home. And this is us after slopping around in the mud all day and just kind of having a ball with it. You know, you have to enjoy what you do, and there are some definitely challenges, but Tanner and I had an opportunity to break away during that project to actually go explore some of those little creeks. And he was showing me the creeks that he explored when he was a little boy. That's exactly what I did. So again, we hit it off, you know, looking for little salamanders together and creek chubs and crayfish and seeing how all these different things interact, and then taking all those different ideas, going back to his actual home, his new home, and trying to reconstruct and have these little microscopic areas where he could actually put those similar philosophies together.
All right, Tanner, what'd you find?
Found a pretty cool creek chub here.
Oh yeah, look at that.
It's probably about full size. Might get a little bit bigger than that.
You get him?
You got him?
Yeah.
That's a dusky.
Dusky? There was another one in there, wasn't there? There he is. So awesome. That's a good day right there. All right, cool little finds.
Baby.
Oh, oh nice. Went to, yep. Crayfish. This is a perfect habitat for them. Check that out. One giant slab of stone. So we're finding this, we're going further up the canyon, getting up to the headwaters kind of, and finding more of that bedrock versus that stuff down below. Completely different. This is kind of old. Myself, Pond Guy, Brian, Chris Hansen, we had a TV show called Pond Stars. It was on Nat Geo Wild back in, we started filming in 2013 or 2014. Wrapped up stuff in 2015. We did 12 different projects. We had a full season with them. And the only reason I bring it up now is because they fell in love with what we do. And it was awesome for me because I love National Geographic. I mean, I grew up with that stuff. They are the leaders in information for our natural world. So for us to be associated with them, they sought us out because they knew we had something unique. Our methodology of creating water the way nature intended it was very, very unique in how we use biomimicry concepts to break apart natural ecosystems and then reconstruct them for a wide variety of different types of animals, you know, fish and zoological exhibits, etc. So all these different things, and then obviously you have all the crazy stuff that happens on a construction site. It was really, really unique for us to have that. It was an incredible experience. That time is well past us at this point in our careers, but that's why we're doing what we're doing right here. So having vlogs, having all the different social media platforms available to us where we can continue to share our passion about water in our amazing world and how you could actually learn every step of the way. I hope all of you take off your shoes, go wade up and down a creek system, check out that natural world, get back to me with some of your favorite stories because this is what keeps me going on a daily basis. I love what I do and I can't wait for the next amazing project.